Hey guys, John here with Max Brakes. Today we're going to be doing a brake install on the 2019 Dodge Ram Classic. So before we start the install, let's take a look at what comes inside the PerformanceMax kit. Okay, so we have the Max brakes. These are going to be for your front, and this is going to be a set for your rear. Included in the package, you're going to get your synthetic grease. This is going to be for the contact points of the brake pads and calipers. It's nice stainless hardware. This is going to be something to be expected in your premium line of brake pads. Very thick, very robust. This is the kind of hardware you want. Will last the entire lifetime of the brake pads and rotors. Very impressive. Vortex layer design. It's going to deliver instant power, braking confidence with safe, reliable performance immediately after installation. Oh, I love this. Looking at this, very well coated, top to bottom. You're not going to get any rust anywhere. It's completely coated inside all the vanes and the outside surface. It's just the way that they're cast here. You can see it's been cast right in the middle. That's indicative of very high quality casting. So each one of these has a separate machining process. You're going to have one for the left and one for the right. Max Brakes has been nice enough to give you an L for left side. We have an R for right side. So all you got to do is take a look, and it's going to tell you which side that these are designed to go on. The nice part is all this nice coating is going to be visible from the wheel, and I don't want to scratch any of that. That's going to protect you from rust, and it's going to make it look good. It's nice looking stuff. What I'm doing here is just a shortcut way of pushing the piston back. Once I get the caliper off, I'll show you why I'm doing what I'm doing. Oh, and this is not a pry bar. This is a screwdriver. So use a pry bar, right? We're going to take the caliper off right now. We're just going to attack it by, the caliper is generally held on by the sliders. Let's unbolt the sliders. It's going to be your slider pin bolt. Check it for rust, make sure it's clean. With both slider pins off, at this point the caliper should be able to come right off. Okay. Now, as soon as you get the caliper off, you want to do a little bit of an inspection. You're going to want to make sure that these slide pins are going to move freely. These ones are in good condition. In general, when you service these, you might want to add a little bit of Siliglide inside there for lubrication. And if you remember, I had the pry bar inside there. What I was doing is basically pulling the caliper forward towards me as I have fully pushed back the piston. Your piston is going to be the hydraulic component that actually does all the work. And with it all the way back, we're going to have enough room for a new set of pads. You're also going to want to inspect this rubber boot here for any rips or tears, because once water gets inside here, the corrosion could compromise your hydraulic seal. This caliper looks great, so let's hang it up. We're just going to hang the caliper. I'm just going to use zip ties, something quick. And that's just to make sure that the weight of the caliper is not hanging on the rubber hose itself. This rubber hose is going to transfer your hydraulic pressure to your actual piston. You don't want this damaged in any way, shape, or form. So with the caliper removed, now we have access to the actual brake anchor. This is what the brake pads are going to be acting on. So we're going to remove the old pads. I'm going to slide them out. Generally, you're going to have to measure the thickness of the pads. These ones, however, they are still serviceable. Once this pad material gets down to a certain thickness, then it's going to be time to replace them. Or if you have squeaking or any sort of problems with them, replace them as needed. But as you can see here, you have lots of material left. We are changing these a little bit early, admittedly. With the pads removed, you now have access to the anchor. We can take the shims off. These shims are actually what the brake pads ride on. And we'll be cleaning up this area over here and putting the new shims on. Oops, cut. We're going to inspect them to make sure that they're moving nicely. If these sliders are seized, that means the caliper won't move and you'll only have the one side with the piston working. Or even worse, they'll be seized in such a way that the caliper itself is pushing on the other side and you'll have one side moving and the other side not. So that's why it's really important. You got to make sure that these sliders are free. It's time to remove the caliper anchor. Now, if you don't have an impact gun, you can always use a large breaker bar. We're going to have the riding surface of the brake pads is here. And what you're going to want to do is make sure that's clean. Just get rid of any rust and dirt that's there. Let's open up our synthetic brake lubricant. And we're going to put them mainly on any sort of surface where you're going to have contact. All right. And our caliper anchor is completely prepped now. So now, let's take the rotor off. In this case, we got lucky because the rotors are not seized to the axle. And generally, that's going to be because you can see they put a nice layer of anti-seize there. Not too much, but just enough not to let the rust take place. These are your brake shoes. These are going to be your parking brake shoes. So you just want to make sure there's fairly clean on this side. If they're too glazed, you can run some sandpaper on them. And you got to make sure they are moving fairly smoothly. These look like they're in good condition. So we're just going to continue on with the install. What you're going to look for here is any signs of any sort of rust here. If you get any rust whatsoever, that's going to compromise, like see there? I'm going to have to grind that out. So a nice wire wheel. You can use an angle grinder, a drill, or what do you have? Even just a regular brush to just scrub it. You just want to make sure you clean all the rust off of this. It looks pretty good. You're still going to have to get a little bit of grinding through there. This one looks pretty good, but we're still going to give it a good clean. If this is rusted, then that rust is going to make the surface uneven, and therefore the rotor's not going to sit true to the wheel, and you're going to get vibrations guaranteed. So now, this is going to be your wheel bearing hub surface, or your wheel hub. This is where the brake rotor is going to be mounted on. Places like Canada where you're going to see a lot of rust and salt, it's a good time to put a nice thin layer of anti-seize on. Okay. Let's get a rotor, brand new rotor. Confirm it is for the left side. One trick I like to do is if you have the rotor falling off, you can just get a single wheel bolt, or not in this case, and just bring it all the way down. And again, this is not to tighten it down, just to stop it from flopping around. So you can put the brake rotor is going to go on here, and you might have to adjust the parking brake as you need. Just so you feel them slightly dragging. That one's perfect. So now we have our caliper going on. You can bring them in by hand. And we're going to torque them to the manufacturer's spec. Double check. Perfect. So with the provided grease, you want to make sure it's on all the contacting surfaces. Just add a little bit there, because you see this area here is what's going to be sliding on the actual anchor itself. You can see there, it's just a little bit of lubrication to make sure that those pads are going to slide nicely. So the grease will only be going on the contact surface. You're going to want to be very careful not to get it on any of the brake pad material or the braking surface of the rotor. Just take a note if there's any clips or riding surfaces. Bring it in. In this case, you want to make sure that is in front, and then the whole caliper will slide back on nicely. Grab your sliding pin retainer bolts. I know, I'm gonna get chewed out on the internet. Look at this idiot! I was like, ooh. Make sure all the hardware is as you found it. You don't want any of these sensors dragging, or even worse, hitting something.